Welcome to What Nobody Tells You. I'm your host, James Ferrigno. Join me while we explore the truths most people never hear. Hi, I'm James Ferrigno, the host of What Nobody Tells You, and I'm going to do a little disclaimer here. The views and opinions on this show, the information you get from this show should not be considered professional advice. This is for entertainment purposes and informational purposes only. And to add to that, you really shouldn't just do something because I tell you to online. Because I give you the information doesn't mean you should do the thing. You want to talk to professionals, talk to other people, and make your own choices. So just because you see it in a video doesn't mean you should do it. Just because it might be good for most people doesn't mean it's good for you. So you have to do your own research, talk to professionals, talk to a doctor, figure out what you're going to do, then make a decision and do it. Don't just see it in a video and then do it. You're missing a lot of steps there. So you want to make your own decisions and your own choices and not let videos that you see online make those choices for you. You don't want to just do something because it's online. So I'd also like to add that in some of my videos, I know at least the one that I'm putting this on now, I give an exercise of the 100 highs to say hi to 100 people. Now, I'm excuse me, a masculinity coach, and this exercise is intended for men. If you were to do this, if anyone were to do this, it should be a man doing it. It would be a different situation if a woman was doing this. So it wouldn't work out exactly the same. And I have not seen women do this exercise before. I'm not saying they haven't, but I've never seen it. So I cannot really speak to that. But you shouldn't really do anything, especially if it involves walking up to people, unless you think the situation is safe, and that just use the normal common sense and normal decision-making process you use to keep yourself safe. Don't just go blundering forward, not realizing outcomes of your actions. So think for yourself, make clear decisions, take time to think about them, get information from different sources, talk to professionals, talk to your doctor, talk to your therapist, and make the decisions that are wisest and best for you. So everything I've said, including this, should not be taken as absolute truth or recommendation. So make your own choices, make your own decisions, talk to professionals. I'm James Ferrigno, and welcome to the What Nobody Tells You podcast. Today on What Nobody Tells You, I'm going to be talking about confidence. And last week we talked about outsourcing your authority and being able to identify that and being able to retake your own personal authority so you could have freedom. And one of the things that you need to be able to have your own authority, your own authenticity, is to be able to be confident. And I'm going to look at some of the ways that we can do that. We'll start from the beginning. There's a lot to being confident, so we can't cover it all in this one podcast, but I will go over a number of things you can do to start becoming more confident. And I'd say the first thing that I give people who want to build their confidence is grounding. So a grounding exercise is a fantastic place to start to become confident. In fact, you can't really be confident if you're not grounded. And well, this is a good time to address this. There's a lot of people out there in the world now that seem confident but aren't. And we're talking about building real confidence, not fake confidence. And most of the people in the world right now that seem confident, that behave confidently, they actually aren't confident. They're able to suppress their fears and their emotions and disconnect themselves from themselves, so they don't really have their own uh, emotional and energetic connection to themselves. So they don't really know what's going on inside themselves. They don't know themselves very well. And if you're willing to do that and be disconnected, you can, and most people aren't doing this consciously, but you can produce a state that seems like confidence. And people will refer to them as confident. But most of the people out there that are labeled as confident actually aren't. Because if something hits them, if something brings up their true self, that confidence can be broken. And that faux confidence can disappear. Whereas people who have real confidence are going to be really confident, and that's something that can't be just easily taken away. So to build real confidence, you need to be grounded. And one thing you can do to become more grounded, there's a lot of things, but really long list of things you could do, is to do a grounding exercise. So if you look on my YouTube channel, the very first thing I ever posted years ago was a grounding exercise, a simple grounding exercise, basic, good place to start. So if you go to my YouTube channel, there's a link should be a link in the description of wherever you're seeing or hearing this podcast. If not, you can just search my name, YouTube, James Ferrigno, James, Ferrigno, and it should come right up. And go back to the very first video. And that will give you something to do. Now, I would say do that at least once a day, every day I've been doing grounding more than once a day, every day for the last, since 2006. So about 20 years now. So, and over time, grounding is something that helps in the moment to kind of ground you and calm you down, but also it builds over time. So the longer you do it, the more days you do it for, the more years you do it for, the more and more grounded you become. And you see this with a lot of martial arts experts and people who have done it for decades. But no time like the present to start. So, which is another thing, being present, that also helps with your confidence. And being present is closely related to being grounded. So it's hard to be present if you're not grounded. It's hard to be confident if you're not grounded. It's hard to really be where you are if you're not grounded. So I would suggest going and listening to that recording at least once a day. And I would do it in the morning. If you're going to establish a new habit, you want to do it before the day comes in and all these things happen that will distract you from doing it. I know we've all tried to set up a new habit, a new thing that we want to do every day, and then, we miss a couple days and then we stop doing it. So one good way to start avoiding that, or to at least give you a better chance of being able to stick to it, is to do it in the morning. Do it before your shower, after your shower, whatever you do when you get up in the morning. Brush your teeth. Most people do that. So if you do it before or after that, that's a good time to do it. I believe it's 7 minutes long. Excuse me. So it's not very long. 7 minutes out of your day, and it can really make a difference. And that's a good place to start. Now, there's a lot of components, like I said, to confidence, and grounding is one of them. But another one is to start to become aware of your emotions. So the more, just, have the intention to be aware of what you're feeling, and that can help you. Another is to stimulate the vagus nerve in your this long nerve that runs through your body, and stimulating that helps you keep you more calm and will help to build your confidence. And there's a whole bunch of ways to stimulate this. You can stimulate it by singing, by chanting, by deep, slow breathing, gargling will do it, laughing. Um, a lot of different things. You can even just hum, like make sounds, just that will work too. Uh, Other ways to start to create the atmosphere where confidence can be built is to meditate. Daily meditation is great. That's why I like doing the grounding exercise, because it functions as a daily practice and is similar to meditation, though it's not exactly the same, but it also specifically helps you become more grounded and therefore more confident. So, yeah, I can't recommend that one highly enough. Um, Taking probiotics helps stimulate that. So, there's all different kinds of probiotics, and can't recommend anything specific, but just in general, eat probiotic foods, or they have capsules. Um, you can also, when you're physically fit and you exercise, that helps. Uh, Acupuncture can help. Uh, and here's one. When you sit down to eat, just take a beat and check in with yourself and see how you're feeling. And you want to eat when you're relaxed, when you're calm. If you're rushing when you're eating, it's going to cause your digestion to not be very good, and blood flow is going to change. And that's going to throw your system off. And that's not the kind of thing that's conducive to building confidence. So just being calm and relaxed when you eat is a good practice. And here's another practice I'll give you that can be really powerful at help building confidence. So when we're talking about confidence, often we're talking about how we deal with other people, speaking to other people, interacting with others, social situations. So, and a lot of people have issues with that. A lot of us, if we're not very confident, can have difficulty talking to people. We can have difficulty even talking to our partner in a relationship. We can have difficulty having conversations that bring up big emotions for us. And we can have difficulty talking to strangers or doing public speaking. All these things can be difficult when you don't have a level of confidence. And one way to get that is simply to practice, to expose yourself to it. And one thing to do is just when you're out in the world, just talk to people. When you're in a store, if there's someone standing next to you, if anything comes up that you could talk to someone about, talk to them about it. Just say hi to them, ask them how their day is going. You can do this with a cashier, someone in an elevator, just throughout your day, wherever you are, someone standing in line in front of you or behind you. It's good to use that muscle, that social muscle, and talk to people. If you kind of sit on a computer all day and kind of put your head down and don't really talk to anybody, except maybe on particular occasions at lunch or people you already know, you're not as socialized. So just talk to everybody out there, try that for a week, see how that goes. One exercise that I recommend is the saying 100 highs. So I found this to be very powerful at building confidence, very powerful. Go out. This can be difficult if you live in a very rural or small area where there aren't very many people. But if you're somewhere where there's a decent number of people, you go out and just say hi to everyone you pass and keep track of them, and try and say hi to 100 people. It should take about an hour, a little over an hour and a half or something. So just go out and say hi to 100 people. And what you want, your goal is to, while you're saying hi to them, is to be embodied and grounded and relaxed. And when you are embodied and grounded and relaxed, the people will generally have a positive response back to you. They'll say, hey, you say hi, they'll say hi back to you. When you're off, if you're all nervous and off and you're not grounded and everything, most people won't say hi back to you. They'll, there are certain circumstances where people will, every situation is different and there's different communities and different levels at which people know each other. Smaller communities, people are more likely to say hi to you. But if you're in a big city, like say if you're in New York City or something, a lot of people won't say hi back to you, right? And if you get really, I think the percentage is something like 70%. If you're really embodied and grounded, and when you say hi to people, you should get about a 70% positive response back if you're really good at it. So when you're just starting, if you get half the people, you're doing really good. If half the people have a positive response. Now, if they have a response that's negative, that's not good either. So it will help you to be more confident. Over time, as you do it, you become more comfortable at it. Then you'll become more comfortable at saying hi to people. I know I did it one day. I went out and did 300 people, which it was over. Might have been closer to 350. So I did 300 to 400 people, and took a few hours. And I had a big change just from doing that the one time. There was a big shift. I remember feeling like I became so comfortable with so many people in the city. And there's this cumulative effect when you're saying hi to everybody that comes by. And that's one component of this is you need to say hi to, don't skip people. If you start skipping people, you're just going to skip, and it won't work. So you have to say hi to absolutely every person. I mean, unless they're dangerous or something. If they look dangerous, don't say hi to them. But otherwise, say hi to everyone that you walk by. And if there's a group of 10 people, you obviously can't say hi to all 10 of them quickly enough, but, as close as you can get to that. But this time I said hi to 300 and something people. There's this effect that happens that all I can equate it to is like when you're you're in your house and you have a couple people you live with and you're saying hi to them, you're very comfortable because you talk to them and see them all the time. But something happened, at least with me, that since I could talk to and was talking to every person that went by, even though the people were different each time, since I was talking to everyone, it gave me the feeling of familiarity, like I can talk to anyone here, which made me feel like the city is my living room, which is huge. So I started to feel as comfortable in the city as I do in my living room, which for me was a big shift. And it really made it feel like, yeah, this is my city, like in a bigger way, like underline the word my. And that was a big shift for me. So if you are really want to do this and you really want to go for it, you can go out there and do 300 of them, and you might get a big shift. So, but going out once a week and doing the 100 highs, Saturday or Sunday or something, go to the beach or the mall or wherever it is you want to go, and go where there's some people and say hi to the next 100 people that you see, and that should really have an effect over time. You do that for quite a few weeks, that can have an effect. So see how that works. And if you combine doing the grounding exercise with doing the high exercise, that can then you're on your way. You're on your way. You can start to build some confidence. And these are all pieces. There's a lot of other things you can do to build confidence, but putting all these pieces together and building this confidence will allow you to, be more grounded, and, vice versa. So being more grounded helps you be more confident. And then when you're more confident, you're better at asserting your own, asserting your own authority so that you can be free in the world and you're not just following what other people tell you to do. So, this came up for me recently. It was yesterday that I was listening to a particular artist, singer, and I realized, yeah, and I don't really like this song. I'm going to skip ahead and I'll listen to something else. And I had done that the last few times, and this is a artist I thought, that I'd always liked. But I really stopped and thought about it and thought, every time I hear this artist or the song comes on, I don't want to listen to it and I skip it. And it's someone who's very revered. And I think what I realized is that I never really liked them, but they were just so revered, and Rolling Stone had articles on them and everyone talked about how great they were and everyone read them, that I just accepted it because everyone believed it, everyone thought it. And so this is not a judgment on whether they're good or bad, but just on my taste. And I didn't like them. And I've realized that I don't like that artist. They're just not to my taste. I don't want to listen to them. And that's a bit of a revelation. And it shows you how we can become so influenced by others that we don't even know our own likes and dislikes. It's like we're not running our own life. We're just kind of doing what other people think and say. And there really is a lot of this going on where people, there's Twilight episodes about this or Star Trek episodes, but where people are just, there's groupthink and people are just doing what the other people around them are doing. But when you do that, that doesn't allow you to be yourself. And if you do that regularly, you don't have much confidence because you don't have much self-determination or freedom or inner authority. So, which also isn't authentic. So then you're not authentic either. So, and it's really good to expand your awareness and pay attention to these things when they come up. Do I really like this? Do I not like it? And I'm still doing this. It just happened to me yesterday. And there's a lot of pressure out there too. So it's not just that there's people are saying what they like and it's somehow neutral, but there's pressure in society to support and believe what larger groups want you to think and believe. And here's an example. I went to grad school a couple of times. One of the times I was in grad school, we had to write a large paper. And this was a Shakespeare class. So we had to write a large paper for the Shakespeare class. And it's when I really found out what a sacred cow is and how, I heard the term, I knew what it was, but I didn't realize that it's really sacred, that there are certain people and organizations and beliefs and things that are held in such, high esteem that you're not allowed to have your own opinions about them. You're not allowed to have your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own authority. There's a huge pressure to outsource your authority and not be yourself and do what is being directed of you. So what happened in grad school was we had to write this paper for the Shakespeare class, and I chose to write it on Henry V. And since I'm a real film buff and I watch a lot of films, uh, I wrote it on the Henry V film. So Laurence Olivier had made one in the 50s or 60s, and maybe even late 40s, and Kenneth Branagh had made one in the maybe late 80s, early 90s. And so I did a compare and contrast on them. And in my compare contrast, I came to the conclusion that the Kenneth Branagh version was more accurate, more well done, I think, and I went through all the different ways in which Kenneth Branagh's performance uh, was, I thought, the better of the two. So what happened was when I turned it in, I found out that that's not an opinion you're allowed to have, because Laurence Olivier, Sir Laurence Olivier, was held or is held in such high esteem that no one's allowed to be even at his level. So I wasn't allowed to have that opinion. So I was not given a bad grade on the paper. The professor handed it back to me and said, "This is not acceptable. Go write something else." So they didn't even want it on record that it had been written. I mean, that's how sacred it is. You couldn't even get a bad grade in it. It just had to be erased from existence. So, and to me, that was a bit shocking. I expected if they really thought it was bad and didn't like it, I'd get an F or a bad grade. But no, that's not what happened. It was not allowed to be. There was not allowed to be a record of that opinion. So that's just an example of how deep these things go. And there's a lot of opinions. There's some you can't say. It will cause people to become violent. Just a simple, innocent opinion on something, too. And, historically, there's a lot of this around, politics and religion, of course. People have such deeply held beliefs. And ironically, these are usually the beliefs that they're outsourcing. So they're not really their beliefs. When a huge group of people all have the exact same opinion about something, you might want to look at that. So those tend to be the beliefs that are being outsourced to a group. So yeah, so there's a lot of those things, right? And you can't, so it's a double-edged sword or a catch-22, because in order to begin to assert yourself as a free thinking individual human with their own authenticity and their own authority, it takes confidence, and you need to have some confidence to do that, right? But it's hard to have confidence if you're not free thinking and don't have your own authentic power. Your power has been taken from you by some group, and so now you don't have as much confidence. So, but this is a good place to start, because you can do these exercises. You can go out and do the highs. That's what I recommend the most. Go to my YouTube channel, find that video. It's the very first thing I ever posted. It says, basic grounding exercise, and either follow the link or just do the Google search for my name, and listen to that. Listen to that in the morning once a day. Do it for a month or two. See what happens. And go out and do that highs thing. If you can do that once a week, that would be great. Or just once. Just go out once and do it. See what happens. Um, that's a good place to start. Start building that. And if you don't have a daily practice, you can throw that in if you want to do that. And some of these things are really pretty easy to do, like just laughing more. You watch more funny movies and you laugh more, and then that'll help with your confidence a little bit. You know, these things are cumulative. Like that one thing isn't gonna change your life entirely, but just combined with other things, it really can. You know, they have a cumulative effect. So, and especially the combination of doing like the interacting with people, like doing the highs, like I said, and doing the grounding exercise. And the other thing that I had mentioned was just going out and talking to people, which can be helpful too. And doing public speaking can help for people as well. Because you got to start somewhere, and you have to do it yourself, because you know you can, yeah, or get a coach to help you. I include that as doing it yourself. You have to do everything yourself. People can help you with it, they can support you, but really nobody can. In the end, no one can really make your choices for you. They can make their choices for them and then make you follow their choices, but they're not making your choices. They're making their own choices and just making you do it, or tricking you into doing it, or whatever way they're getting you to do it. So, but they can't do it for you. And really, no one can actually heal you. No one can help you with your emotional state. They can support you and help you, but they can't do it for you, right? No one can change your emotions. No one can have your emotions. No one can feel your pain. So you got to start yourself doing these things so that you can kind of work your way up to having your own authentic, real ideas and opinions. And it's not like we're sitting around thinking, most of us, you know, oh yeah, of course I like what I like. But I told you the example that I had from yesterday. It's like, I didn't know. I had no idea. You know, I didn't realize. Decades have gone by, and it took me that long to realize that, oh no, I don't really like that artist. And it's good to have an open mind, I think, meaning you're willing to be flexible and change your ideas. That when new information comes in, and that's a mark of being confident as well, that you're capable of changing your ideas when you get new information, and changing your beliefs, because that's called growth. And if you can do that, then you can change, then you can grow. When you can't change and grow, well, it's pretty obvious what happens to a plant if it can't change and grow. Another thing to pay attention to when you're interacting with people, and this could be while you're doing the saying 100 highs exercise, or while you're just talking to people in the street, but if you're just talking to your partner, or anyone you know, it's good to make eye contact with them, and to make relaxed, comfortable eye contact. That, not staring. If you just glare at somebody, that's not good. So you want to look at them, and I think if it's maybe you can look away every few seconds and look back, so you're not looking too much. Every once in a while, you want to look away. Don't just stare at someone, but you do want to make good eye contact. But the whole thing should be calm and relaxed. You don't want to intensely look at somebody. You just, in a relaxed way, see them, connect with them, be capable of looking to the side, and maybe look at something else if it makes a noise. So that can be very useful. Being able to really make good eye contact is a huge skill. It's a huge skill. It's a superpower, really, in a way, being able to make good eye contact. I found during dating, uh, during job interviews, things like that, meetings, being able to make good eye contact is very powerful. I've been on dates where I hardly said anything. I just made good eye contact for a lot of the time, and that can really have a powerful effect. So that is a great skill to have, a great skill to build is eye contact. Looking in the left eye is one tip, because then you have more access to someone's emotions. You can see them. If you notice, most people's right eye is a little more glazed over. Their left eye is more open. And you can kind of see what they're feeling more there. So try and pay attention to that as well. Remember to keep in mind that though there are a lot of successful, confident people out there, and that there are many people who look like they're really confident, as I mentioned before, most of the people who look to be confident really aren't deep down. So at some point, possibly unless they leave this earth first, their fake confidence will begin to crumble and break down. And then they'll have to, especially if they really want to work on it, and then they will have to come start at the beginning again and start to build the real confidence. So when it looks like they're really way ahead of you, it looks as if they're ahead of you, that they have much more confidence than you do. In reality, if you're really working on it and you're slowly building your confidence, it's the other way around. You're just on the whole next level and you're way ahead of them because you're really building your confidence. And they're in this house of cards that can collapse at any time. So I'm saying it will, but it could. And so it's good to look at what's really happening, what you're really doing, rather than think of yourself as less than other people, which brings up a point: comparison. So a good way to be more confident is to don't compare yourself to others, to anyone, not to someone in your class or someone you work with or your neighbor or people in other countries or, God forbid, famous or rich people, you know. Uh, and we all tend to do this. Most of us tend to do this, to compare ourselves to others. But any kind of comparison like that is not going to help you grow. Because if you're comparing and you think you're better than the other person, then you're building fake confidence, not real confidence. If you're comparing and you think they're better than you or ahead of you or, stronger, whatever the adjective is, then that's going to hurt your self-esteem. That's negative self-talk. So you're kind of beating yourself up. I know we talked about negative self-talk before. So that's something to pay attention to. So, and as I've said before with negative self-talk, it's good to pay attention to what the thoughts are in your head. And if you're thinking negative things about yourself, oh, they're better than me, I'm silly, I'm stupid, I always do that wrong. Oh, every time this happens, every time I drop the thing, blah, 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 blah. So that negative self-talk, you're just constantly knocking yourself down, and it's like an engine stopping you from succeeding, stopping you from being free, stopping you from caring about yourself, stopping you from being confident, stopping you from, having your own authentic authority, your own self, your own freedom and happiness. So pay attention to that. You don't want that. And comparison will lead to that or something like that. So either the opposite, which is just as bad, it's just the same. If you go around thinking, oh, I'm better than everyone else, that's just kind of it presents itself as being the opposite, but it has the same effect. So, and that's not something that's always pointed out either, is having the opposite of negative self-talk, this overblown, fake ego, I'm better than other people thoughts that's the same. That's also negative self-talk. Even though it looks like it's, inflated ego, but inflated ego is only because you're scared and weak and not confident, right? That's people with gigantic egos are people that are terrified. And often they're usually not aware of that. They're not aware of their deepest fear. Even though if you look at them, you can see, if you look closely, you can see it all the time. You can see that they're scared. Even though they act like they're the bravest person in the world. They are not. They're just frightened. And paying attention to this can really help. I mean, it can also help in the world. Just pay attention to other people too, and just you can see what's going on with them, but then you can also see what's going on with yourself. And as long as you're not comparing and judging, like discernment is okay. You look at things and discern. You can have the ability to tell the difference in things without putting one on a pedestal above the other, without saying one is better, one is right and wrong, that'll get you in trouble. So they did the wrong thing, I did the wrong thing, or just two flip sides of the same coin, right? I did the wrong thing, they did the wrong thing. So if we can avoid that kind of judgment, then we can just make clear decisions and have discernment about what's going on. And this can really help with your confidence as well, because you're naturally going to have more support and be more confident when you understand your surroundings, when you understand what's going on inside you, when you understand what's going on inside others, when you can see what's happening in a group, then you're going to be more confident because your awareness is bigger. Because really, all of this stuff, starts with awareness. Yeah, that's the beginning. That's the beginning of almost everything. It's becoming aware of your emotions, becoming aware of your thoughts, becoming aware of, noticing if you have negative thoughts, noticing if you're judging people, noticing if you're judging yourself, noticing if you really like something or don't really like something, noticing if, a lot of your beliefs, a lot of your likes and dislikes aren't really yours. I mean, and that can be a real awakener, but every time you realize something like that, that is going to build more confidence, and that's going to help you be more grounded and help you be more free. Every time you learn something about yourself, every time you can root out one of those lies that you've been living with, that's huge. So, yeah, and looking at, I know that I went through and looked at things my parents had told me, things that I'd been taught in school, things that I've read, things that I've seen on the news, of all places. A lot of information there that isn't necessarily correct. So, and I spent years deprogramming myself from all this garbage, all these other people's ideas, all these other people's beliefs. And they were implanted into me as a child by parents, by neighbors, by relatives, by the media, by the teachers, by, everyone. And it took a long time to root out a lot of those. And mostly it was just a process of being open to it, being aware, and then the thing would pop up. I'd say something and I'd think about it for a second and go, wait a second, that's not right. That can't be true. It doesn't make any sense. I guess I don't believe that. I guess that's not the way it really is. I guess, nope, that's not right. And I was raised with all this stuff. And there's so much of it, and you just don't, until you start going through the process and becoming more aware, expanding your awareness and paying attention, at least having the intention to pay attention and be aware of things, then, most of us, especially as children, we just have these ideas and beliefs. And when you're young, they're just put into you. And you don't, they're not really yours. And I know that here's an example, like, because things have changed over the decades, to some extent. And I remember, boy, as recently as, well, when I grew up in like the 80s, for instance, during that period, 70s, 80s, 90s, it was like prejudice and racism were considered bad, except that there was a pass for Arabs, anyone from the Middle East. You were allowed to be absolutely prejudiced in that area, and nobody thought anything about it. I never saw anyone question that, not in the media, not anywhere. It was just never questioned. These are these dangerous, different people that really cannot be accepted, to the point where there's that movie I saw in like the 90s where they just portray Arab people as terrorists. Like, if you look at the movie, the Hollywood, it's just they're always terrorists in movies. This is the only role that there was, really. And that's and even, that hasn't gone away 100%, as we all know. So, but that kind of thing gets, it's just being repeated by everyone, and it's hard to say. Things like this spread, and some group is spreading it, and then other groups are doing it, and who knows who is aware of it and who isn't. Most people, I think, really everybody's just unaware. Most people are unaware of what's going on. They're unaware of themselves. They're unaware of that this information came from somewhere else. And you can't really be yourself, and you thus can't really be confident, can't really, be authentic in a situation like that, where you have all these things that came from somewhere else. And it's just amazing how you can look at another person or another group of people and think, how can they possibly believe that? How can they possibly think that is true? It's ridiculous. How could people in the Middle Ages thought leeches, were good or whatever, which it turns out they actually are not that bad. But and we can look at the past this way. There's a lot of judgment of the past. They didn't even have electric motors, whatever it is. And but if you really just turn that lens around and look at yourself, or your own society, no matter how critical you are of some other society or some other group of people, of what they do that's so ridiculous, you'll be able to find one in yourself or your group that's just as ridiculous if you look for it. And that's being open-minded. That's being able to change. That's being able to grow. And when you can do that, you can build your confidence, and you can build your own authenticity and power. When you can be aware of things like that in your own neighborhood, family, culture, your own self, your own heart, mind. And so looking at these things and be strong enough to admit that you have been in that same place, in that same position. That takes a little bit of courage and a little bit of strength to do. Not everyone can look at the other group of people and see that they've done similar things or have similar ludicrous beliefs. Because almost all groups have them. Past, present, probably future. We don't know about that. So we want to look at all these things and look at ourselves. This is how we learn who we are. You have to expand your awareness to learn who you are. And that's the foundation for confidence, is knowing who you are. That comes first, having some awareness of what's going on with you, and to some extent with other people and with groups, especially when they're interacting with you and they may be the impetus or cause for some of the ideas, thoughts, feelings that you have, because we're all interacting. So yeah, set your intention to become more aware of yourself. And whenever you want to criticize someone else, anyone else, or see, look how they are like that, really think about it, and you'll be able to find something in yourself, not that's not identical, but something similar, or something in a same vein, or something where you did something like that. Yours might not have been as severe or look exactly the same, but we've all had completely mistaken beliefs. We've all had very poor behavior on occasions. So before you go pointing the finger at other people, or, point the finger, but then think about it and realize what you're doing and see if you can see some shadowy reflection of that in yourself. Then, if you go out and do the 100 highs and do some grounding, you're well on your way to great confidence. So I think we'll wrap it up for this week, and I will see you next week. But remember to go to my YouTube and listen to that. At least go there once and listen to that grounding exercise and do it. You need to be in a kind of quiet space, somewhere where you're not going to get disturbed or people aren't going to bother you, and listen to that. And that'll help you be able to ground, see if that's the kind of thing that you want to do. I have a couple of other ones on the channel as well, but go back and do that first simple one and see if that works for you. And James Ferrigno, YouTube, or follow the link that should be in the description of the podcast. Hi guys, if you could like, subscribe, follow, share, that way I can help bring you more information and better podcasts in the future. Thanks.